Okay, uh, now we started learning about inductive transducers. Right? And we saw if I have a coil of n turns, right, then the self inductance L is mu naught mu r n square A by Ln. So normally we do not use A, we do not use N. Sometimes we use relative permeability, but that is very rare situation, right? So one way is to use this LM. So we have looked at this. I put an hinge here and I move this by G plus or minus delta G, and if I wind a coil, so I call this as L. L would be some constant K into 1 minus or plus delta G by G plus or minus delta G by no, this will be always plus delta G by G whole square, again minus or plus delta G by G whole cube, and dot dot dot. So normally we never use this in that single fashion. So what we do is we use the whole thing in the push-pull combination. So we put a complete like this. This is only an illustrative purposes. We'll see the actual how we. So if this is J plus or minus delta G, this would be G minus or plus delta G, because if this moves down, this will move up. So if delta G is reducing here, delta G will increase here, and vice versa. So we have one more coil. So I call this as L1, and this will be L2. L1, L2 will be K into 1 plus or minus delta G by G plus delta G by G whole square. Sorry, there is one, please correct this, delta G by G is missing. So here also some constant. This we derived. You can also look at the Newbert book for this. Right? So if I really look at this particular, right, I am going to let me go from here. So we assume that all these are negligible, small. If I ensure that delta G by G is small, all these I can negligibly small. Then I can write it as L into 1 plus or minus delta L by L is equal to some K into 1 plus or minus delta G by G. So delta L by L, I can write it as K into delta G by G. Okay. So one way of getting delta L by L, the signal conditioning circuit, is to use our conventional bridge. right? Okay. This would be, impedance would be j omega L into 1 minus delta L. This is decreasing, and let me say this is increasing, j omega L plus delta L, right? This is R, and we take the output as E naught, and I excite with a sinusoidal voltage source. Please remember, when we use inductances, we cannot use DC excitation, mainly because for DC, inductance is a short circuit, right? And of course, this will have a small resistance which we are neglecting. Let's look at all those niceties little later. So I have V angle 0 here. Please remember, the moment I write j omega L, I cannot use instantaneous value. I have to use a phasor, right? The moment we go into the impedance domain and use k omega L, I have to use voltage and current as a phasor. So if I look at this voltage, so V naught is E1, let me again put phasor voltage, E1, E2, and this is E naught. So I can say E naught is equal to E1 minus E2. E1, E2 I know is half, this is RR, so half of, let me call this as V angle 0, right? Because we are applying half, okay? E1 would be V angle 0 into L plus delta L divided by L plus delta L plus L minus delta L, right? So this impedance divided by the total impedance into the voltage. So this will be plus delta L minus delta L cancels out. So L cancels out. So this is V angle 0 by 2 minus V angle 0 by 2 into delta L minus V angle 0 by. Again, I look at this and this cancels. So I get minus oh, this is plus, sorry. I was wondering where, this is only minus. So I will get an output voltage E naught. Phasor is V angle 0 by 2 into j omega delta L. Right? Please put j omega here. Everywhere j omega is there. I forgot. It doesn't matter, right? Because there is no j omega in the resistance circuit. So I am going to get an output proportional to the per unit change in the inductance, and hence I will get an output proportional to the air gap change. The problem is I have to make, if you remember, delta G by G must be much less than 1, which means delta G has to be small compared to G. G itself can only be small. We cannot keep 1 centimeter air gap. There will be absolutely useless in terms of inductance. So I can only keep, let's say, 1 or 2 millimeters at the maximum as air gap, and delta G has to be much less than 1 or 2 millimeters. So the usable range of variable reluctance type transducer is quite small, right? Fraction of a millimeter is what we can actually use. There's also another signal conditioning circuit apart from the bridge. This is quite old, we no longer use it. So if we remember, if I have right, this is G, I'll simply put plus delta G, right, so that it's easy, right? It's So I have an coil here, right? And this is Li, right? So inductance L would be equal to N square by A, the reluctance of ion path, with Li by mu naught mu r, plus the reluctance of air gap, G plus or minus delta, please, G plus delta G divided by mu naught, right? This is the reluctance of air gap, this is reluctance of ion, right? Now I can take mu naught N square A divided by Li by mu r plus G into 1 plus delta G by G, right? Now I can choose mu r if I use the ion to be nickel ion, right? If this ion piece is nickel ion, I can get something like mu r would be roughly 100,000, 1 lakh, right? You can also get about 300, 400,000, but that's very expensive and very, very difficult to handle. You will easily get about 100,000 mu r in nickel ion, right? And so if I look at this, I can simply say Li by mu r is much, much less than G into 1 plus delta G by. So this I can write approximately mu naught N square A divided by G into 1 plus delta G by G, right? So I can now take this and that will go to L naught, right? So I can write as L naught by 1 plus delta G by G. Now if I add the other wing and extend this, this will be G minus delta G. So if I wind another inductance, I call this as L2, this is L1. So this is L1. So L2 we can easily put it as L naught by 1 minus delta G by G, right? So if I can simply put this as this as L naught by 1 plus delta G by G, and this is L naught divided by 1 minus delta G by G. These are push-pull, right? When this is reducing, this will increase, right? And we simply put a resistor here. Okay, so Sen op amp, I excite this as minus V angle 0 volts plus V angle 0 volts. Please remember V angle 0 is root 2V cos omega t, right? Some excitation frequency. So this current, I call this as I1, this current is I2, so this current is I1 plus I2, and this voltage is I1 plus I2 into R, and this voltage, again a phasor, would be minus R into I1 plus I2, right? Now this current I1 is V angle 0 divided by L naught divided by 1 plus delta G by G. That will become 1 plus delta G by G in the numerator, right? So that is minus V angle 0. Now if I look at I2, this is I1 phasor. I2 is plus V angle 0 divided by L naught divided by 1 minus delta G by G will go to numerator. So now if I look at these two, substitute here, that would be minus R into minus V angle 0 by L naught into 1 plus or minus, I am always going to, plus delta G by G, and plus V angle 0 by L naught into 1 minus delta G by G, right? So that I can write it here. I take the R. Oh, I have to put J omega. Please. I don't know how I can live with this. Whenever I use inductance, I have to put its reactance, J omega L naught. So R I can take out, and V naught also I can take out. This is minus into minus plus divided by J omega L naught also I can take out. So this will be I am taking minus, this will become plus. This is delta G by G minus 1. This is plus 1 plus delta G by G. So minus 1 and plus 1 cancels out. So I get R by J omega L naught into V angle 0 into 2 delta G by G. Again, I see that the output is G is a constant. The moment I design, the output is proportional to delta G. This is one popular way of getting an output from push-pull type variable reluctance inductive transducer. But if V angle 0 is actually, I can write it as this will be root 2V cos omega t. If delta G varies as delta G into sine omega t, I see that this is a product, and if I look at the output, when delta G is 0, I get 0 output, right? And when delta G varies like a sine wave, the magnitude of cos omega t is multiplied by sine wave. So I will have, right? So this is delta G. Let me put another color. So this is delta G, and this is E naught, right? Again, what we see is that the output is a carrier modulated by the input, mostly the delta G, right? And if at all I want to get an output proportional to delta G, I must demodulate the phasor E naught. Then only I will get whatever input I am trying to sense. So we already saw this in our resistive transducer. This is called carrier frequency amplifier. We can also use another bridge called Bloom-Line bridge. It's more popular with capacitive sensors, so when we discuss about capacitive sensors, I will talk about the Bloom-Line bridge. Um, if you look at any textbook on transducers, you will also see myriads of other type of inductive sensors. One inductive sensor is having two coils, okay, and a slotted sleeve, just a copper sleeve moving by X. The inductance has a sine wave shape, right? And between this and this you can use linear portion. But all these are only academic interest. You will not be able to buy them from the market. What you can buy, of course, is a variable reluctance principle. I'll give an example of a variable reluctance pressure sensor, most probably in the next class. Okay. And the next that we saw is the LVDT, linear variable differential transformer. So we have one primary and two secondaries. The dot points are like this, and we excite it with and we put a plunger here which has a relative permeability mu r, normally high permeable plunger, and we get this. In the last class we saw that theoretically we expect the magnitude of the output voltage. Please remember, this will be again sine wave. This would be a phasor. This is V angle 0, again another phasor. We expect this, but what you will actually get would be something like this. I am exaggerating just to show. So there will be a residual voltage. We already saw that the residual voltage arises because of you cannot construct exactly identical these two coils, L1 and L2, and also there will be parasitic capacitances which may not be equal, right? And all these put that E1 and E2, the voltage induced in the two secondary coils, will not be exactly 180 degrees out of phase, even though we put the dot points here and here. E1 and E2 has to be, but there's a small phase shift. So in the ESSER years, people used to use a lead lag network to compensate for this phase shift. But today we do not use this, right? Again, there was a solution which again is no longer very popular, but let me go through it fully. Right? I should not put this. Let's say this is my primary, this is one secondary, this is another secondary. I put a bridge rectifier here, right? I take this output, again I put a bridge rectifier, if you remember, if you look at this, you will see that I have reversed it here. So, and we connect these 2 points. So this would be plus minus here, this would be plus minus here. So this is E2, this is E1. So if I look at if E1 is sine wave like this, E2 will be rectified like this, and this voltage let's say is doesn't matter whatever value it is, right, because it is the other half, it will be rectified this. So this is E1, this is E2, and if I look at, if I put a capacitor here, of course there will be average value of the capacitor, this will be the average value of capacitor. So if I look at E0, E0 is E1 minus E2, this would be E1 minus E2 would be, depending upon which is greater, I am putting E1 greater than E2, I will get a positive DC voltage. And of course, if I put a capacitor, I will not get a perfect DC. There will be some ripple, right? We will have to live with that. This again was, so if I look at the plunger displacement X, the output E0 would be a DC voltage now, which will be proportional to X. Provided, of course, I put a capacitance here and a capacitance here, right? Even out the full wave rectified waveforms. This is the problem is, if I look at the full wave rectifier, if my input is less than 0.7 volts, the diodes will not conduct, it will not work as a rectifier. To make it really work, I need at least few volts, or sometimes even tens of volts, so that my full bridge rectifier will work, and the 0.7 cut-in voltage is really insignificant. But that is near a tall order in design of the LVDT. LVDT, we would like to have the LVDT to be as small as possible, but if I really put this extra condition on the design of the LVDT, that I should get a large voltage for E1 and E2, then the LVDT becomes bulky and so on. Okay. So the one way to look at this is, can we use a rectifier that doesn't have a cut-in voltage? So if I really look at a rectifier diode, so this is V diode and this is I diode, and we extend this, and this is V gamma, right? And because of V gamma, we will not be able to rectify anything less than V gamma, right? Only voltages above V gamma can be rectified. So if I look at an ideal diode, of course ideal diode reverse current is 0, right? And the forward current is like this, right? There is no drop across it. So is it really possible to get such a rectifier? We can, right? So we use op amp again, right? Right? So if I now give a sine wave here, right? When this is positive, this is also R, this is also R. When this is positive, this will become negative. Cathode is at negative, this diode will conduct. So during positive, I will get a negative output, right? So, okay, I will not write it here. So I am putting here. So when my input is positive, right? When my input is positive, please remember it is inverting, so my output will be negative. Now when my input is negative, output will become positive, right? When this is negative, the output will become positive. This diode will open circuit. Please remember, this is ground potential, and because it open circuits, there is no current here. This potential will be green. So I will get half wave rectification. Now, if the open loop gain of this op amp is AOL, A open loop, right? The moment I have a small input voltage, the output will become A times input, right? So as long as AOL times Vi is greater than V gamma of the diodes will conduct, right? And I will get a rectified output. So what does it mean? If Vi is greater than V gamma by AOL, this will function as a rectifier. So if AOL is, let's say, 10 power 5, and this is AOL is equal to 10 power 5, V gamma is silicon, so I have 0.7 volts. So I am going to get 0.7 by 10 power 5 will be my new cutting voltage. When Vi is greater than 0.7 by 10 power 5, the op amp circuit will still rectify the input. So if I look at 0.7 into 7 into 10 power minus 6, or this approximately 7 microvolts. So even if my input is greater than 7 microvolts, my off-wave rectifier will work, right? So the thing is it possible to get a full wave rectifier? Yes. I just put the diode here. So this is my one input. I put one more op amp. I take the same input and I get the output. So this is R, this is R, this is R, this is R, this is my input Vi. Again, it's a sine wave, right? And we'll see this is R by 2. Because this voltage we already know, right? This voltage we already know. If this is my input, this output, I call this as E0, E0 1, right? So this is E0. E0 1 would be half wave rectified value with a negative sign, right? Now if I look at this op amp, this has to be multiplied by -2, right? So if I multiply by -2, I am going to get double the voltage. So this is E0 multiplied by -2. Now I am also having one more input, which is output will be minus the actual voltage, right? So this is V hat, this will be 2 V hat because we are multiplied by 2. If I add these two, I will get exactly. So we have a full wave bridge rectifier. Either we can use one op amp, right, and get a half wave rectifier, and or two op amps and get a full wave rectifier. We call this as precision rectifier. In instrumentation, we use this quite extensively wherever I need to, because instrumentation you will always have a voltage which is quite small, right? A transducer or whatever we are using, the voltage will be millivolts or tens of millivolts. So I can't use a, uh, an ordinary diode rectifier because it will simply not rectify. For my diode to rectify, my input should be greater than 0.7. Even if I have 0.8, 0.7 will not come, only over and above zero point 0.7 only will be rectified, right? That is really bad. So in all those applications, what we do is we use uh, precision rectifier, right? And the moment I use a precision rectifier, I don't need a amplitude demodulator, right? And I can straight away get a DC output proportional to my plunger position L. And also the moment I rectify, please remember, even if I have a phase shift between E1 and E2, I am rectifying, converting it to DC, so my phase shift simply vanishes. At some point, I will get the DC of E1 equal to DC of E2, and they will cancel out and get a 0. That may not be exactly at x is equal to 0, but I may get with an offset, the positive offset or negative offset, but I will get a 0 output voltage for some value of x. Please remember, if you don't use rectifiers, the output will be amplitude modulated, and also we will have a residual voltage. Okay, the residual voltage is quite cumbersome to eliminate, so either we use a precision rectifier and eliminate the effect of phase shift difference between the two secondary output voltages. Okay. Now when it comes to the precision rectifier, there is another circuit you can use instead of precision rectifier, uh, which is once again a popular signal conditioning circuit. We will see that we can use it for many applications. Is simply known as phase sensitive detector, simply called PSD, right? There are two types of PSDs. One is called multiplying type, the another is called synchronous switching type PSD. Right? Let's see. How do I get out? It's not going. I'm still not used to delete. Okay, that is gone. Let's see. Multiplier type PSD. I have a multiplier, right? And if this is, there are two voltages, E1 and E2, E0 would be equal to E1 multiplied by E2, right? Now I take E1 as root 2 V1 cos omega t, and E2 as root 2 V2 cos omega t plus phi. There's a small phase shift. The output now would be 2 V1 V2 into cos omega t into cos omega t plus phi, right? Now what I do is, this is a multiplier. Just keeps going. So this is a multiplier. I take this and put an integrator. Right? I am going to get E naught here. Let me say that is E naught. So E naught I can put, because it's a repetitive function, I put an integrator, it will become automatically 1 by 2t into 2v1 v2 integral 0 to t cos omega t into cos omega t plus phi. So this would be 2v1 v2 by 2 uh, cos omega t by t, right? Cos A cos B is integral z uh, 0 to t. Cos A uh, cos B is cos A minus B, which is cos phi, minus cos A plus B, cos 2 omega t plus phi divided by 2 dt. So this would be 2 v1 v2 by t into cos phi, right? If I integrate cos phi, I am going to get a t will go to 0 to t, and minus 2 v1 v2 by t into cos 2 omega t plus phi, again 0 to no, integral dt. I'm not going to integrate this, because if I look at this, I am having a cosine function, right? Uh, and I am integrating it to the one whole period. What is the integration? Area under the curve. So this will cancel with this. So I will get a 0, right? You can expand it mathematically and find out that this goes to 0. So, and if I put t equal to 0, I get 0. If I put t equal to t, I get t. So at 0, I get nothing. 2 v1 v2 by oh, there is a 2 here. This 2 cancels out. So I will remove that 2, and this also cancels out. v1 v2 by 2, right? v1 v2 by t into cos phi, right? When I put t equal to, so t cancels out. That would be v1 v2 cos phi. So we see that the output uh, is proportional to the cosine of the phase angle between the two inputs. What is phi? Please remember, this is cos omega t, this is cos omega t plus phi. So that tells us that the output is sensitive to the angle phi between the inputs E1, V1 and V2, right? Now if I do the other thing, oh, I'm always right. Okay, some more multiplier, and output is integrated, and I get the output, and okay, one input is root 2 V1 sine cos omega t plus phi. The other input is root 2 v1 sine omega t, right? What I have done is, I have now put one of the input as sine, the other input as cos, and the sine function has 0 phase, and the cos function as phase. So I am not going to derive this. You can derive this V1 V2 sine phi. The output will be proportional to the sine of the phase angle between V1 and V2, right? So if I write the root 2V cos omega t plus phi as a phasor, this is V1, this is angle phi, right? So RMS value of the cosine function is the magnitude of the phasor, and it is shifted by phase angle phi, right? That's the phasor V1, right? So this is V1 angle phi. So if I look at this and look at the components on the real axis and imaginary axis, this is V1 cos phi, this is V1 sin phi, right? So if I look at this PSD, it is giving me E naught is V1 V2 cos phi, right? And if I look at this PSD, it gives me V1 V2 sin phi. Of course, I have not derived it, yeah, but I can tell you, you can derive it quite easily. Please derive it. So I look at this multiplier in integrator block. This functions as though it is resolving my phasor into two components which are at 90 degrees, and this component we call it as in phase component because it's on the real axis. This component we call it as quadrature component, or this is in the real axis, this is in the imaginary axis of a complex plane. So we call the first PSD as in phase PSD, and the second one is called the quadrature PSD, or simply the first one is called PSD, phase sensitive detector. This one is called QPSD, right? What is the big difference? For the in phase PSD, we give a second signal as cos omega t, right? My input is cos omega t, second signal is also cos omega t. For the quadrature PSD, what do we do? If my input is cos omega t, I give a reference which is sin omega t, which is already 90 degrees, right? So this 90 degrees shift, actually this minus 90 degrees, right? So then I get an output which is proportional to the sine of the phase angle between the input and the first input and the second input. Okay. So the phase sensitive detector, as I said, as like the precision rectifier, phase sensitive detector also has myriads of applications. But the multiplier type phase sensitive detector is not very popular because if you want to build an analog multiplier, it is quite complex, right? Because we do have analog multipliers, AD 532, 632, 732, right? These are ICs given by analog devices which give you an analog multiplier, but they are not nice devices. They are quite expensive, also not nice ones to design, right? So what is popular as a PSD is the second type, which is called synchronous switching type PSD. What is a synchronous switching type PSD? We will see in the next class. So I stop here. We'll